Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Enlightening with me, Sayyid RAZA and our guest today, Brother MOHAMMAD ADEEL, on our third of four special episodes of Enlightening, where we are discussing matters which affect the youth mainly and young professionals which you may come across in your daily lives, in your daily routines. And today we are discussing the topic of ghusl or ablution and its necessary requirements, why it is important within the religion. And before coming on to air in terms of talking about ghusl, I looked at what effect has cleanliness, purity within Islam had an impact on wider society. So I came across a book by Will Durant, and he writes during the time of the Crusade in the 19th century, and he said that one of the greatest improvements within society was the introduction of baths and steam rooms in that of the Muslim style. So here's a Western scholar highlighting the importance and the improvement within personal hygiene within society. I'm sure this in itself shows how evident it is the importance to maintain yourself in a clean and healthy environment. So before I go back to our questions, just to let you guys know, you can call in. The phone number is on the screen. So if you have any questions, please feel more than welcome. Brother Mohammed is here to answer all your questions. So just pick up the phone if you do have any questions. So Brother Mohammed, as we were discussing before the break, what are the different types of obligatory, ghusls, and when are they needed and why are they needed?
The obligatory baths are divided into 7 different categories.
Okay.
So there are 7. We have to remember there are 7 obligatory baths within the believer if he has performed these actions, if they are related to both male and female.
Okay.
So if the male has performed the actions that result in janabat, that result in a ghusl, then you have to perform the ghusl. The first, as we mentioned before, is janabat, and we've explained the 2 ways in a person that becomes in janab state. The second is for a woman, she's in her haze, which means in her menstruation cycles. Third is the nifas. Nifas is basically when a woman is pregnant and she's given birth, and after the birth up to about 10 days there is a blood. Yes. Okay, yeah. So then she should refrain from prayers and she should perform the ghusl. The fourth is the istihada, also related to women, where after the periods, the time, if the time period is set for the woman, say for example she has periods for 5 to 10 days or 7 days prompt every month, and if it carries on, that period that carries on is called istihada. Okay? So this, in the state of istihada, the woman has to perform the ghusl. The fifth is the ghusl for touching a dead body, and we'll explain this later on how. The sixth is the bath for a dead person's body, so for a person who touches a dead body, and also for the dead body itself. The seventh and final is a bath which becomes obligatory upon a person who makes a vow or an oath for his actions. He has to perform it. If, for example, says something, I'll promise to do this thing. If this happens, I'll perform a ghusl. So he has to do as a vow. Okay. So these are the 7 most important obligatory baths within a person. If he is in the state of janabat, he has to perform a ghusl. For the women, there are 3 ghusls: the haze, the nifas, and the istihada, and also touching the dead body itself, and the vow and the oath.
So are there any recommended ghusls which person may perform on his if there's a specific occasion or a specific day, is there anything recommended?
Recommended in the Islamic term means mustahab. Mustahab is basically something that the Holy Prophet ﷺ urges the people to do.
Sure.
Alongside the wajibat, which is obligatory for us, the mustahabbat are there for a person if he has time to perform them. First of all, the ghusl for the Jummah prayers. That is mustahab upon us. That is recommended upon a believing Muslim to perform before he goes to the prayers. Perform the ghusl, the Jummah. When can this be performed? It can be performed from the time of Fajr all the way to sunset. But the most convenient time to perform it, as in the books of the fuqaha relate, is near to the Zuhr prayers. So a person performs the ghusl Jum'ah just before the Zuhr prayers, he can, it's recommended for him to perform. The second part is where the first, in the holy month of Ramadan, where the first, 17th, 19th, 21st, 23rd and the 24th night. So there are 5 dates. 17, first of the holy month of Ramadan, 17th, 19th, 21st, 23rd and the 24th. So there are 6. So these are the recommended mustahab ghusl that can be performed, that are recommended for a believer to perform, to perform the ritual washing in the holy month of Ramadan. Then we have the ghusl of the 2 Eidain, the Eid al-Fitr and the Eid al-Adha. So there is mustahab to perform the ghusl on those days just before you go to prayers. It's not wajib upon you, but it's mustahab. So if a person who doesn't perform his ghusl, there's no consequence. For example, we see that our youth today, if they don't perform the ghusl, they say that we can't pray. And it's incorrect. Which is incorrect. We need to understand that these ghusls, these ritual washings are there so a person can clean himself further. Wudu is wajib upon you to perform just before the namazes for the salat, but ghusl is an extra thing. So if he doesn't perform the ghusl, then there's no problem and he can go to prayer. We find youth today that don't pray because of ghusl. So this shouldn't happen. The other ghusls that are recommended are in the holy month of Dhul Hajj, where the pilgrims go to Hajj. Recommended on the 8th and the 9th day to perform the ghusl before they go to the rituals, the worship before on the 8th and the 9th day.
Is this for everyone or just those that are going to perform Hajj?
Just it can happen. Anyone can do the ghusl. Not only the people who are in the pilgrimage, the holy pilgrimage in the Hajj, they have more time for themselves. They have to be in that state where they are only thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and alongside their wajibat they have to also follow them mustahabbat. So once they've performed the wudu, they can also perform the ghusl. And why not perform the ghusl where it takes less than 2 minutes? No, so there's no stops for you to carry on this. Another mustahab ghusl is where also in the state of in the holy month of Dhul Hajj, is before you place your ihram, the ritual clothes that you wear when performing Hajj. Ghusl for entry into Mecca and the Haram. So when a person goes into Mecca, the holy city of Mecca, he should perform the ghusl. It's recommended, obviously. So if he doesn't perform it, then it's not problem. He should. It's recommended for him to, before he enters the city of Mecca and the Haram, to perform the ghusl. Also, the ghusl for entry into the Kaaba. So into that the Kaaba, you should perform the ghusl
There's a
before
lot
you
of
go.
ghusls centered around.
There's a lot of ghusls.
And umrah and stuff.
There's a lot of ghusls, but the unfortunate thing is that people don't know about them.
Very definitely.
So once they read the books, once they read the Islamic laws, the jurisprudence of the ulama, they realize that there's not only one ghusl that is wajib and there's not one ghusl that is mustahab. Everyone knows about the mustahab ghusl of Jummah, but they don't know about any other ghusl. So we need to sit down and educate ourselves into this state.
So you've mentioned a lot of the recommended ones. So touching back on, we were talking about before being in the state of junub, what happens if a person has no access to to water or the facilities to perform ghusl? What are the what happens there? What did the ulama say in terms to what should they do if they came for namaz and they were still in that state and were unable to perform ghusl? So what are the appropriate steps to take?
If a person knows that there is no water to perform the ghusl, first step that he needs to take is that he needs to search for water. That's the first step. So if he searches north, east, south and west and he doesn't find it, it's said that you have to travel at least about 200 meters. Go north, go south, go east and go west, and if you don't find water within that radius, then you can go on to the second step. The second step is to perform the tayammum for the ghusl. So you do the intention for ghusl when doing tayammum. Okay, so you say I'm doing a ghusl instead of the ghusl, I'm doing tayammum. So this has to be in your intention. Then you can perform whatever you want to perform. You either want to pray. This is the substitute.
Is this a temporary measure, or so is it still wajib on them to perform ghusl once they do come into an area where there is water in the facilities?
Then you have to understand that if water, you have to know that if the time for prayer, for example, it's the end time for prayer is say 6 o'clock in the evening for Zohar and Asr, and he's into that state of janabat at 1 p.m. So he has 5 hours to look for water. If he's being lazy and he doesn't want to find water, then it's not. Then he can't perform the tayammum because he's not searching for water. That's the first step that you have to do. You have to explore and find water. If he can't find water, then he has to perform tayammum. But if he has performed tayammum and he's prayed, there are some ulama that say that if he even finds water after he's prayed, after he's done tayammum, that he doesn't need to pray. He doesn't have to perform the ghusl again.
Okay, the ghusl again.
Yes. There are some ulama that say that even though he has performed tayammum for the salat, he has to perform the ghusl again. Why? Because it's wajib upon a person to perform the ghusl, not the tayammum. This was a substitute. A second plan, as plan B. If a person finds water after he's performed tayammum, then some ulama say that he has to perform the ghusl again.
And what about the namaz? Does that have to be performed again?
If the ghusl has to be performed again, the salat has to be performed again.
Right.
So this is based on some ulama. Some ulama say that, others say that if the person has performed tayammum and he's prayed,
it's allowed.
It's the salat is accepted, and he doesn't need to perform the ghusl, but he needs to perform the ghusl anyway afterwards.
So each person would have to refer to their marja.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So we're talking about being in the state of junub. So what are the acts which are not recommended to be performed in that state, and what can we and what can't we perform, and what can't we do?
There are 5 things that are haram upon a person in a junub state. The first thing is that he, with any part of his body, he cannot touch the Holy Quran, the margins or the borders of the Holy Quran, as a obligatory precaution, he should stay away from and not touch the holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's name and the Lady of Light, Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, and the Ahlul Bayt. So he should avoid the names of these infallibles, and he is not allowed to touch the holy Quran in any way, in any language. So if the Quran is in English, if the Quran is in Arabic or any other language, he is not allowed to touch it. That's the first thing. The second haram thing that a person is not to do is to enter the Masjid al-Haram or Masjid al-Nabi, even if he wants to pass by it, or if he wants to pass from one door to another door, because we know that he's not allowed. The third step is that he can, a person who is except any other mosque, he can travel from one gate to another gate. So that's the third thing. But for Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Nabi, he cannot even pass from one gate to another gate. So these are important acts that a person should acknowledge. The fourth is to enter a mosque with the intention of lifting or placing something inside. So if a person is in that state of janabat, he cannot have that. He cannot make the intention that I am going into that mosque to place something, or I am going to that mosque to lift something up. No. The only condition, the only way he can go into a mosque, except for Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Nabi, is to pass from one gate to another gate. That's the only way he can go into the mosque. There's no other way. Yes. The fifth is to recite those verses from the Holy Quran that have the wajib sajda, the wajib sujood.
Not allowed.
He's not allowed. He's not allowed to read them wajib verses from the Holy Quran that contain the wajib sujood. Why? There's a very reasonable explanation behind this, because he needs to perform the sajda, and to perform the sajda you need to be in a pure state. What are them four surahs? The first surah is Surah Al-Sajda. You'll find it in chapter 32, verse number 15. The second is Surah Al-Hamim. You'll find it in chapter 41, verse number 38. The third one is Surah Al-Najm, chapter 53, verse number 62. And Surah Al-Alaq, chapter 96, verse number 19. So these are the four surahs that a person, if he is in the state of janabat, he cannot read.
Just before you carry on, I think we've got a caller. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Anyway, continuing on, so we're talking about, so what about the acts which are makruh? So you're saying that these are all haram, correct?
A person cannot
do these. So are there any acts which are not recommended, but you can do theoretically?
There are a few in the Islamic laws, in the books of the ulama. There are 9 things that a person can do, but he should avoid. First thing is to eat. If a person is in the state of janabat, he should avoid eating, but he can eat if it's necessary, if he has no other option. Also to drink. Thirdly, to recite more than 7 verses of the Holy Quran, apart from the 4 other ones, because we know that the 4 are haram to recite. A person cannot recite more than 7 verses of the Holy Quran if he's in the state of janabat. Fourth is to touch the cover and the margin of the Holy Quran with any part of his body. So it's makruh upon a person to touch the Holy Quran, even the borders and the margin. The fifth is to keep the Quran, the Holy Quran, with him. So if he has the Holy Quran, as we will find that in the shops there are pocket-sized Qurans that we can keep inside our pockets, that should be avoided. A person who is in the state of janabat, is makruh upon him to keep the Quran on himself. So this is the fifth. The sixth is to sleep. A person who is in the state should avoid sleeping in the state of janabat. The seventh is to dye one's hair. When he is in the state, or when she is in the state, she or he cannot It's not recommended upon a person to dye one's hair.
Okay.
The 8th thing is to apply oil on one's body. A person, when he's in the state, he should avoid placing oil on his own body or her own body. The 9th is to have sexual intercourse after ihtilam. Ihtilam basically means to the discharge of semen during sleep. So you should avoid intercourse after the state of ihtilam. So that means what? The discharge of semen after during his sleep.
Okay.
So these are the 9 makruhat acts that a believing Muslim should avoid. But if he has no other option, or for example if he is so hungry and he's in the state of janabat, and if he doesn't eat he's going to become weak, or his health is going to deteriorate, he can eat, but he should avoid himself from eating or drinking.
So I mean that's obviously quite a long list. I mean, what are the best places to go for viewers who wanted to look more into depth upon the situations, what they can and can't do in that state? What are the best resources to look at, would you suggest?
The best resources obviously are the books, where we find all our answers inside the books. Or we can, if you have contact with the regional ulama, the nearby mosques, we can ask the ulama if, for example, if you are in that state, what should you do? We can't be ignorant upon ourselves and say that we are in the state of janabah, we don't want to go towards the ulama, and we are scared to even approach the person, the alim, and tell them that we are in the state of janabah. We should not ask, we should not be in that embarrassment state. Whatever we need to ask, we need to ask.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't ask, then our ibadat, our worship
will
not be accepted.
Thank you very much. And I think with that last question we are up with time. Once again, many thanks to Brother Muhammad ADEEL for joining us on our 3rd episode of Enlightening. I hope this for you guys has been quite informative and touched upon a subject which can be embarrassing at times, but it is very necessary and very important to make sure you're on the clean and proper state, so you are able to carry out your obligatory prayers and rituals in a state which is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So once again guys, thank you very much for joining us, and if you can just finish with a short dua by Brother Muhammad ADEEL. And just to let you guys know, we're back again next week, same time, Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. Thank you.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.